Okay, so I wanted to do a part 2 of anxiety video on anxiety, part 2. And I'm trying to make these videos like a little bit short, I'm in my car, AC's on, parked outside of work, on break. I just ate a sandwich. Anyways, so yeah, part 2 on anxiety. So on the first video, I talked about opposite to emotion as a skill to be used to do the opposite of what anxiety is demanding of you. This video here, is on emotions in relation to anxiety. And what I mean by that is we have an emotional mind and then we have a reason logic mind. We have a reason mind and we have we have a reason logical mind and we have the emotional mind. They're very different. If you're used to operating out of emotion, it's going to be extremely challenging to retrain and rewire your brain and get into the new habit of focusing on the logical thing to do versus the emotional thing to do. A really good, and this is a skill. Okay, so we had skill number 1. We talked about the first video, which is opposite to emotion. This skill is on using your logic mind, your logic brain, the logic, right? You want to use logic and reason as you're operating throughout the day as much as you can. You want to catch yourself when you're in an emotion, whether it's anxiety, stress, disappointment, frustration, betrayal, any kind of like intense emotion or heightened emotion. You want to be able to catch it, right? So you have to be able to notice it, right? Catch it. You want to be able to be in touch with it and realize and not avoid the emotion. When you start to avoid and pretend the emotion is not there, you're going to end up flooded with other emotions that are very similar. And then that can lead to anger, which is a secondary emotion. Anger is a secondary emotion. And what that means is that usually there's other emotions that lead up to anger. You typically, in theory, you don't just get angry. You have to experience other emotions in order to even experience anger. Like betrayal, feeling shocked, surprised, nervousness, blah, blah, blah. So you have primary emotions like those that I just talked about that will lead up into anger. So we don't want to get there, right? We don't want to, anger is, although it's natural, like it doesn't feel good. None of these primary emotions that I just described either feel good. But the point is that we're human and we're going to go through ups and downs. We're going to go through ranges of emotions. And like, you want to be able to notice and catch these emotions, feel what it feels like, lean into the emotion, even though they're not the most pleasant. They're difficult to deal with. They're difficult emotions. And you want to label the emotion. Okay, you want to question and get into something called Socratic method, get into a philosophical discussion with yourself, even if it's brief, like it could be 1 minute, it can be 20 minutes, but you at least want to start to conversate with yourself and or at least out loud with God, or if you don't believe in God, just out loud or aloud. You want to be able to like process and question, go into something called Socratic questioning. And what that's going to do, it's going to get you to this point of self-reflection of how you even got to that emotion in the first place, such as anything like betrayal. We're talking about difficult emotions: betrayal, shock, surprised, sadness, fear. All these primary emotions. You want to be able to get to the point where you can be non-judgmental with yourself about what you're feeling. Non-judgmental because you don't want to be hard on yourself for experiencing something that's so natural and is going to reoccur at some point in time. It could be tomorrow, it could be a week, it could be a year, whatever. And so getting into this Socratic method of questioning, how did I get here to this emotion? What's going on? What just happened? What led me to feel this way? Not only are you self-reflecting, but you start to figure out that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, that it's normal, Life is a roller coaster. Okay, life is a big, just like, if you've ever gone to Six Flags, or you know, here in Texas we have Fiesta Texas, right? Six Flags Fiesta Texas. If you've ever been on a roller coaster ride, when you first sit in the seat, you gotta get secure, you gotta buckle up or whatever, you gotta, like, you know, smile at your friend next to you, you know, are you ready? It's a range of emotions, right? It's a little bit of excitement, anticipation, a thrill. There could be a little bit of like fear, you know, what if this doesn't turn out as well, blah blah blah, you know. And it's a range of emotions. You get to the peak, and then it's like, you know, you go all the way down. It's like this rush. You know, you're going through all this range of emotions. It's a roller coaster ride. Life is a roller coaster ride. Your emotions are a big roller coaster ride as well. And so it's normal. And you get into this questioning, this philosophical Socratic method of questioning yourself and your emotions. And what you're doing is you are just emphasizing how it's okay, you're normal. But what you also want to do is figure out, how can I reduce what I'm feeling right now? Because it's not pleasant. Like, it's just not pleasant to feel these emotions of like anxiety, stress, depression, shock, betrayal, surprised, right? Like you want to get to the point where you're just like, oh, okay, I've dealt with this before. I've felt and experienced this before. I've got through it before. And it just gives you this resiliency to surpass what you're going through. It makes it easier. You build a tolerance for emotions after a while. Kind of reminds me of like hardships. You know, when you go through a hardship in life, you know, you've ever been evicted or fired or laid off, or, you know, a death in the family, or like, you know, you're low on cash, or, you know, you're low on whatever it is that you might be going through, an expense, or like, you know, whatever, an allergy, I don't know, an illness or a sickness or whatever. You get through that, you overcome, and when you get over that hump, you're just like, whoa, I got through that. This is great. Like, thank God that's over, that storm. But when something comes up again, right, you feel a little bit more equipped to deal with it, even though it might be something totally different. It gives you a little bit more of like esteem and self-efficacy that you can get through that roller coaster and ride it all the way to the end, and then unbuckle and unload yourself, right? And that's what this video is about. It's about, you know, being able to accept all emotions, leaning into them instead of avoiding them, but also trying to decrease, because they're unpleasant. And if you stick with that emotion too long, like you stay stuck in sadness, what's going to end up happening, or anxiety, is you're stuck in a loop. I've talked about that loop. It's a feedback loop with yourself and that emotion. And you need to break the loop, right? And how do you break the loop? How you do that is by Socratic method, questioning, getting philosophical about how did you get to this emotion? What can you do different? What causes? You want to use logic, okay? And so being in the emotional mind is so easy. It's just almost like second nature. Or first nature. Most people are operating out of emotion. It actually takes energy and time and intelligence to use logic and get in touch with your emotion, and then be like, what's a logical thing to do right now? Like, what is the most reasonable, logical thing to do right now? And you go about doing the logical thing based on facts, not feelings, not emotions. You go based off of facts, logic, reason. Both men and women, I feel, are operating primarily out of emotion. Oops, my earring just fell. Out of emotion. And I mean, that's just my assumption, right? And you can just tell just like what's going on if you just study people out on the road or like at stores. Everybody seems to be kind of like in the emotional mind. At least that's my perception. I could be totally wrong. And so it does take energy and self-awareness to be like, what can I do right now to operate from the most logical and reasonable standpoint based on facts? Okay, that's the point of this video. You want to use your logic mind, go based off of facts, not emotions, to make choices and decisions, and just to like clear yourself of emotion. Oh, sorry about that, my phone fell. And you just want to be able to question yourself, be able to figure out what are the facts of what just happened, what just went down, and how I got to this feeling, emotion. What can I do to reduce this stress, this anxiety, this emotion that I'm dealing with, because it's unpleasant. When you stick too long with this emotion that's unpleasant, your day is going to be very difficult. And the bad thing about that is you don't know what else is coming in that day, like what other kind of forces are going to come your way. And so you're already dealing with this one emotion, and then if something else happens, and you know, it's a ripple effect. So you want to get a hold of it while you can and do something about it. Okay, sorry my phone fell. But anyways, I just want to share that with y'all. I hope you have a great day. Bye.